This film will explore and illustrate the importance and the meaning of Welsh identity, in particular the way that Welsh people perceive their identity and if the everyday representations of the nation build a shared sense of national belonging to its inhabitants.
I was brought up in a Welsh-speaking home. Welsh is my first language.
Well, it wasn't mine because I was brought up to speak English, but I wanted my children to learn the language, so I had to learn it as well.
And I think we are proud indeed to be Welsh speakers and Welsh by nationality.
I went to a Welsh primary school and I was probably about 3 when I went there, so I started learning to speak Welsh at that age really.
I'm not a Welsh speaker as such because I wasn't brought up to speak Welsh. I went to English schools, my parents didn't speak Welsh, Welsh wasn't spoken at home. But as my life has gone on, both of my children went to a Welsh language school, and as such I've picked up quite a lot of the language through them, through my children. So I'm not officially a Welsh speaker, or I wouldn't really consider myself as a Welsh speaker, but I do understand quite a lot and I can converse to an extent in Welsh as well.
Yes, hiraeth is, I would say, a longing. It's sadness about things that have changed and places that you wish you were, rather than in a foreign country or doing things which are strange.
But from my understanding of the word hiraeth, to me it is definitely synonymous with Wales, and specific to Wales, and a kind of a longing for home.
If we hear somebody with a Welsh accent, or indeed somebody who speaks Welsh, then of course that immediately reminds you of home. Hiraeth again would be a term that would be appropriate.
If I see someone who's Welsh outside of Wales, then there's definitely an instant kind of connection there. And then you feel like a real sense of community because you're both Welsh outside of Wales. But I think everyone who's in Wales, well, the majority of people who are in Wales anyway, are Welsh or identify as being Welsh or partly Welsh at least. So I feel like it's kind of like an implied community, whereas when you're outside of Wales, it's a lot more rare to find people who are also Welsh. So if you manage to find somebody who can actually speak Welsh outside of Wales, it's kind of it's a special moment. It's like if you hear Welsh being spoken somewhere where you don't expect Welsh to be spoken, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a little bell in your ear. It's nice.
Benedict Anderson's study on imagined communities and the reflections on the origin and spread of nationalism notes that the definition of the nation is an imagined political community, imagined as both inherently limited and sovereign. Anderson depicts a nation as a socially constructed community, imagined by the people who perceive themselves as part of that group. The nation is imagined because it entails a sense of communion or horizontal comradeship between people who often do not know each other or have not even met. Despite their differences, they imagine belonging to the same collective, and they attribute to the latter a common history, traits, beliefs and attitudes.
Certainly sort of associate certain things with home, daffodils, cennin or leeks, and the flag of course is something that's close to our heart. Rugby is another thing that is very strong with its association with our home, our country. And I would say that when we are away from home, I think we find that the saying is, y Cymro gorau yw y Cymro oddi gartre. In other words, in English, the best Welshman is the Welshman away from home.
The things that I see that immediately remind me of Wales, the daffodil, 100% without a doubt. Leeks as well. probably because of their connection to St David's Day, because people in Wales on St David's Day, and St David of course is the patron saint of Wales, they wear a daffodil on their lapel or on their jumper or their shirt or whatever they're wearing, or they'll wear a leek, a real one sometimes, or one made out of cloth that's been turned into a brooch. So definitely daffodils and leeks. Obviously the Welsh flag, that immediately makes me think of Wales. Rugby players, if I see a rugby player I immediately think of Wales.
It's quite funny because I feel most Welsh when the rugby's on. I feel like that's a really Welsh, like, I think if you go to the pub in Wales when the rugby's on and Wales are playing England, then you really, really feel Welsh. First of all, I immediately think of the Welsh dragon, and then I think of daffodils and leeks and like the welcome to Wales signs. There's like Welsh cakes, obviously, lava bread, cockles, Barabreath.
Everyday representations of the nation build a shared sense of national belonging amongst humans and a sense of tribalism through national identity. Bilin Bernal explores the importance of routine, day-to-day and mundane symbols and processes in the propagation of nationalism. An example Bilin uses to elaborate on the notion of banal nationalism is the flag. The notion of hot nationalism, or in other words, passionate and possibly violent expositions of nationalism, which can be represented by the waving of flags in nationalist parades and demonstrations. The notion of banal nationalism is near the surface of contemporary life. It is these everyday and often informal rituals and aesthetic symbols that are crucial in the reproduction of nationalism in a large number of contemporary nations.
When you speak with a Welsh accent, you are very conscious of the fact that it's not something that sounds very posh. However, I think that is something we should get over, because we do speak with a lot of tone, and that makes the conversation, in my opinion, easier to understand and a bit more interesting.
I lived in London for 10 years, and when I first moved there I was around 21, 22 years old, and I think that my accent and being Welsh definitely sort of stood out more to me. I was far more aware of how Welsh I was when I went to London, more so than I'd ever been when I lived in Wales.
Yeah, so there's a lot of associations with even just having a Welsh accent, isn't there? There's the working class, there's all that kind of negative and positive stuff, you know? But I think maybe people see Welsh people as being... What's the word I'm looking for? What is the word I'm looking for? Not English.
Yes, being Welsh is naturally makes you curious, if you like. We're all busybodies. We like to talk to other people and sort of find out where they're from, what they do, and indeed it's sometimes quite strange for other people, but I think Welsh people are busybodies by nature, and I don't think it is something that is done to the same extent elsewhere. For example, if we walk down the road, we are very likely to greet strangers and with a good morning or a good afternoon, whereas I notice that when we're away, strangers tend to ignore each other. Greetings is not something that's done, but we're not like that.
Definitely not. No, if anyone is standing at the bus stop, I'll talk to them. And then again, if I know, that they can speak Welsh, I will ask them. Do you speak Welsh? And another thing with this business of the when somebody reads the news on the television, on the Welsh news or the BBC Wales, and they don't say at the end, they all can speak Welsh, and they won't say, oh, there we are, like goodbye or whatever. Hwyl fawr, I want to hear them saying. Hwyl fawr, say a Welsh word, and I'm looking out for these things all that, and I can't help it. I'm so passionate for the language.
The members of even the smallest nations such as Wales, with a population of 3 million, will never know most of their fellow members, meet them, or even hear of them. Yet in the minds of each lives the image of their communion.